Hello, 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 and welcome to this special Tech Talk edition of the Rag Company podcast in collaboration with Rode FS, who are with us today to talk about some microfiber questions. I heard you guys had a boatload of questions and you didn't know where to turn, except you did because you came here. You came to the right place.
It. So we decided to come to our own backyard. We had a podcast and then we got all these questions and they came to us. They directed to us and we're like, you know,
we could fumble through it, but we know some guys.
Yeah,
fair.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Rod reached out, and you guys were kind enough to allow us to bring our questions because it serves your customer and our customer, right? And that's really the goal, is to elevate everybody's business. And I mean, there are a lot of great questions. And some of them I'm like, oh yeah, I hadn't quite thought about that one too. So
Go ahead.
No, you didn't.
I was just going to say, in fairness, just letting everybody know, we don't know these questions in advance. They could be anything. We don't know. So we're going to find out.
One of them could be how many times Dane falls asleep in the shower.
We're going to answer on the fly.
Right.
The answer is 3. Okay.
The other one is this is a pole between my legs, and I will be pole dancing throughout the entire podcast.
I'm leaving.
So if you see me spinning around.
No, what I was going to say is... I just totally forgot what I was going to say. What the heck? No, so the fun part is having Rod and Jody is they've been good friends. You guys have hopefully seen, and you hopefully are listening or checking out their podcast, or you use their product, Rode FS, and use that for maybe all your invoicing and scheduling and all that stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you guys here. And what I was going to say, I just remembered, is... I was telling Rod earlier, we always have to remember, no matter how long we've been in this industry, there is always new people just entering the industry.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those of us that have been in it for a long time, or we've said it 1,000 times, we're going to have to say it 1,000 more times because people are learning, they're getting into this, and that's the whole reason they want to know. And it surprises us every time because we think, man, how many more people can we reach? And that answer is infinite.
Yes. As a YouTuber, how many times can you make the same video, right? I mean, you feel like, we've done this, it's going to be boring to people. But no, people are endlessly fascinated by even the 101 stuff, the basic stuff.
Right, and we did that Business 101 series that we've been doing for the last couple of years with Prentice St. Clair, and we actually, last Thursday, we aired an episode of it, and some of the stuff came up about microfiber and towels and what do you do here and when do you know how to and literally we got more questions. I was telling you guys before we started, about 50% of these questions came in earlier, and then the other 50% came out of his follow-up
from last week.
And I think they're asking them because I think a lot of times, like you said, they may not know the answer, but instead of going, boy, I don't want to ask Levi or Dane because I feel silly.
Right.
Sometimes social media is unkind, so I'm going to ask Rod and Jody because they're idiots and they'll answer a question. So the questions that came in, they're great questions, and some of them I know the answers. Quite honestly, some of them I don't know the answers. I really don't. I'm like, I don't know, but I know where to go. So
sure. We're happy to help. So I guess we can kind of informally start this thing. You guys got a list.
We do.
We do. Obviously, chat, feel free to weigh in with your own questions. I'll highlight them, but I want to make sure these ones get priority because they were first, honestly.
Yes.
But that's
thank you.
I will highlight you guys, and I'll make sure we hit all of these ones first.
Well, the first question is, what is GSM and why is it important?
Okay.
Well, we have a video called
It's
Dane
a very old
It's literally
one.
our very first. It's literally the first video I think ever made.
There's the second Dane Explains.
Second Dane Explains, so second video. What is GSM? It's the International Standard of Measurement for Microfiber. It stands for grams per square meter.
So whatever material you have, if you were to stretch that or shrink that same material exactly as it is to 1 square meter, that is what it would weigh in grams. That's what it's essentially.
And what we've always termed it as is the weight of the towel, but what it really refers to is the density of the fiber. Yeah. So it can vary depending on the weave. So like a towel like this, which seems very light and thin, right, will have the same density as that towel.
So the GSM could potentially be the same between two towels that, at a glance, you'd think there's no way. Like a waffle weave and an Eagle of a particular vintage, you may have the same GSM, but it looks very confusing to someone because they're like, "How is that?" But it's the density. It's how tightly packed in there is it. Yeah, so that's why GSM is handy. Is You just need to understand it's not what the total weight of the towel is. It's simply telling you how much material occupies, that given space, whether it's thick, thin, something like that. People get hung up. They think high GSM means the towel's automatically thick, and that's not necessarily true.
Or that it's soft.
Or that it's soft, and that's also not true. The blend has a lot more to do with that than the GSM.
The interesting part about it, and we are going to be very anonymous and not let people know, but people were going, doesn't it mean like gallons per square meter?
How much?
And they
like
thought
how
it was
much
an absorbency thing, which I get it. I get it because
don't feel
it's
dumb
true.
for thinking that. If you've never heard, it's understandable. I can totally get why someone would feel that way, but hopefully we're helping dispel that. Right
But it
now.
is the weight of the towel is how we've defined it as, and it basically makes it's so when you're working on looking and picking a towel, you have an idea. So like our 1500 drying towel is 1500 GSM. So it's a heavy towel compared to something else where we have a 245 terry weave towel is 245. It's going to be a very light, open, breezy type of towel. So once you can learn that span of numbers, your brain can kind of get a better idea of where that towel is going to lie in terms of thickness or quality or
right,
that
and
type of
usage,
thing.
right? Because different GSM has a different quality for a reason, is it's got a different purpose.
Yes.
But it also depends on the makeup of the towel. Like you
Yeah.
said, if these are the same GSM, they're not used for the same thing.
No,
Right.
no, and that's just a baseline to go off of. So, all right, what's your next question?
Okay, we've done this before, so we're going to lead right into one that comes up right into this. So why are some like plush, fluffy, and others are not? They're textured, like the waffle weave, right? Is a good
Weaves.
example.
So so that's a weave issue, like we've stated. So there are a number of different types of weaves, and it's how that towel is woven. Each has good and bad parts. We call them. Some have bite, some don't. Some are able to absorb a copious amount of liquid. Some aren't. Some are designed to actually clean surfaces more efficiently than others. So we'll start with something simple and easy. The Costco towel, the Kirkland Signature towel. It's a 320 GSM, but it's known as a terry weave. And that's the name of the weave. It's not a terry towel, it's a terry weave. So it's similar to any other type of terry weave, and it's a great towel, and it works just fine in what it needs to do. And we have a number of terry weaves. Our 365 is also a terry weave. It is a very good, strong, hardy weave that does everything that you need it to do and then some. However, it doesn't always work when compared to other weaves. So compared to a waffle weave is more absorbent than a terry weave. Just the weaves in themselves are different because a terry weave just has a finely defined series of loops, where this has a unique feature in which it allows it to capture and hold liquid and an increased surface area compared to this normal terry weave. Then you've got something like that black diamond towel. That is a diamond weave. That diamond weave is designed because a terry towel, while it can work to clean glass has a different surface tension than paint or clear coat or plastic. So what happens when you run a terry towel over glass or even a plush towel on glass, the fibers get stuck on the glass because the tension, there's so much tension on it that it's literally the glass is pulling the fibers out of the towel.
Well, you smear too.
Yes.
And you smear.
That's
So-
what causes
Which is
a
this guy
smear,
right here. This is
So you've got, we have glass weave. So this is a herringbone weave, and that is a glass weave. These are specifically designed along with that because of the fact these are so tightly woven. They resist that tearing or shearing from the glass on the surface that they're working on. This is a directional towel, meaning when you put it on one way where you wipe with the grain of the fiber, it's going to be a lot easier across the surface. If we crisscross it, it's going to bunch up. So we created the reason for the diamond is it's omnidirectional.
It's omnidirectional,
Because it can go either way, and that's how that towel works, and that's why it works so well on glass. Waffle weaves, you don't have that. You can go either way with it, but that's the reason for those types of weaves. Then We go into drying towels. We want surface area. So how do we maximize that surface area? And that became the advent of twist loops.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Twist loops allow us to create a loop just like we did with the terry weave, only we can make an insanely large loop,
Chunky loops.
a chunkier loop, but then because it's twisted, it's compressed. So once it gets absorbed, it fills with water, that fiber can extend even more and absorb even more liquid. And so the way I describe it to folks is that you've got like a terry weave on its own. And I'll be talking about this in Mobile Tech next week. During Education Day. Basically what happens with microfiber is when it gets wet and it absorbs water, a typical 80-20 terry weave towel, not this one, but like the Costco towel, will absorb about 7 times its weight in water. Mm-hmm. You increase the weave or increase the blend to a 70-30, and instantly you make that towel more absorbent. Then you change the weave. These towels, these glass towels, are very absorbent, but they don't have a lot of surface area. So they're kind of stuck at that 7, where even though this is a 70-30 and this is a 70-30, this is going to absorb more liquid than this one because of the fact that there's more surface area in the Eagle fiber than there is in this glass towel. Or you start combining weaves, like we've done in numerous occasions, to maximize that amount of liquid.
Yeah, and when you guys first did that, the one that I've got, the red one that I wear as a cape.
Yeah, 1500.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's just a giant twist loop.
Yeah. It is unbelievable when you wash like a larger vehicle, the amount of water before you wring it out. And I've done it on purpose. I've washed my 3/4 ton 4-door 4-wheel drive truck to try to see how much. It is so heavy.
So we'll weigh towels too. Yeah. And we'll get them wet, and we'll get their weight dry, and then we'll get their weight wet to the point of dripping. And when we've weighed towels, that's kind of how we figured this number out. So they'll hold about 7 times their weight. The Gauntlet and the Liquidator and the 1500 hold almost 15 times their weight in water.
Wow.
Which is an amazing amount of liquid when in terms to other stuff. Eagles, Pluffles, things of that nature, the waffle weaves will hold almost 10 times their weight in water. And so they've increased from the standard terry. And that's why there are so many different versions, because we make drying towels. So when people go, oh, it's just a towel to dry your car. Yeah. Well, it's about the efficiency of drying the car. It's the ability to be able to dry your truck with a 1500 and then go on to your next vehicle without having to change towels. You now have your towels not completely saturated. Where if I gave you a couple of these to dry, you'd go through a few of them. You'd get it dry, but you'd have to go through a lot of them to get there. And that's the concern. Now, with weaves, we've done our own stuff where we've tried to start. We've been what do we call it? Arranging marriages, so to speak. So the first weave that we combined was we took our Eagle, and we took our waffle weave. 2 really good surface high surface area towels. We got the safety and the plushness of this towel that people love. And then we've got the absorption of this towel. And that was how we created the Pluffle.
The weird child known as the Pluffle.
The plush waffle. And that was our first usage of that. And that was something we were very proud of and something we thought, wow, that's super cool. Then the next generation was taking our Eagle and marrying it with our twist loop, which was like our twistress, our twist and shout, things like that. And that's where the Gauntlet came out. So the Gauntlet was that marriage of changing and combining weaves to create different areas. The newest towel, the Wolf Pack, is that same thing. That Wolf towel is a mix. Easiest way to describe it is a mix between our Eagle and our Minx. Oh, the Minx acted like a sponge and had some squish and some bite to it, to where people really liked it. The problem was it's a very unique fiber that was a kind of a temperamental one. And so we've been working to try and get those bad qualities out and save the good. Yeah. And that's what we got with the Wolf Pack, was you're able to have all those benefits, the spongy feel of that towel paired with the quality that we've come from.
I want you to make this a blanket. So it can.
It's
got that feel. It really does have that feel to it.
I thought of kind of a strange way to describe maybe the increased surface area, maybe in a way that nerdy folks like me might appreciate.
Okay.
So take, for example, you have these towels where they have a much shorter pile, like a terry, just a traditional standard terry-style towel. When you're trying to dry with it, you get a decent amount of absorption. Even if it's a 70-30 blend, it's a more absorbent blend, certainly, but surface area takes into account. I mean, imagine you're playing like SimCity or Minecraft or something. You got a flat map, right? There's all those squares, that grid you've got. Just imagine there's like no mountains or anything. It's just flat. Okay, that's your terry towel. Yep. Now, imagine how many squares are on that grid. Let's just say there's 100. Well, as soon as you introduce any kind of stuff to the 3D space, because right now it's 2D, it's flat, but we introduce like skyscrapers to it, vertical things, trees, stuff like that. And you're increasing the number of cubes that are there. That's the extra surface area. Suddenly, in that same 100 grid plot you've got, you can have 1,000 squares of potential absorbency because you've introduced vertical areas, and every single one of those things, one block has another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on top sides, and then you just keep adding to it. I mean, it increases exponentially. So when you introduce these much thicker, more double-sided towels or things that have like dips and valleys, peaks and valleys, sort of the way it's laid out, it just increases that many opportunities for absorption. So yes, you can have an eagle and go through, but you might still potentially smear because you've got you've
reached the limit of absorption.
You've reached the limit. Whereas you get a twist loop, it's more structurally rigid. So it definitely has more of that kind of squeegee effect. So it's just little things like that. But I think sometimes to help people visualize, you can kind of
and then the other thing
terms.
So just to go a little more, the other thing we realized was that your leading and trailing edges on edges of towels was another thing. And so for a long time, people used satin. They moved to satin. They would create it out of microfiber, but then they were like, the fabrics they were using was not suitable for automotive paint. So they thought, well, we don't want to scratch it, so let's go to satin. Well, the problem with satin is not absorbent.
No.
So now you're creating an edge to the towel that doesn't absorb water. So for us, we moved fully over to our 70-30 suede, which is also absorbent, but also a workable edge, meaning you can still use that surface to scrub. You can use that to get into corners and nooks and crannies and crevices and stuff.
Right. And it's not going to it's not going to mar.
It's not going to mar. It's not going to do any damage. And so that was another reason for why we've always created these efficiencies to make a towel better.
Well, I think one of the things, as I'm listening to you guys describe all of the characteristics of these different towels, it kind of leads into the next question.
Great.
And the next question was, well, why can't I just use Walmart or Costco towels?
Sure.
Right. And I think a lot of people, it's that they look at the cost, they're not looking at the purpose.
Yes, so that's
They're also not
another.
reading the tag usually.
No, and that's another reason. So, one, we have a game well known on the podcast in which I like to go to big box stores and read the back tags on their microfiber.
Right.
The biggest issue is what most people don't realize is that microfiber is made up of polyester and polyamide. It's a higher number of polyester and a smaller number is usually polyamide.
Polyamide's the expensive part.
Polyamide is the expensive part. So there are towels, if you walk into Walmart and you grab a towel and it's a 90-10, 90% polyester, 10% polyamide, the reason it's so inexpensive is because it has a lower concentration of polyamide. But adversely, what that means is polyester, the more polyester in the towel, the less absorbent the towel.
Right.
Polyester is a non-absorbent material. It creates the structure for which the polyamide can adhere to, and it's the polyamide that creates the absorbency. So a 30% polyamide towel right now is the industry standard. There are 60-40s, but they're expensive, and they're too expensive to produce and too expensive to buy.
It's diminishing returns at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
70-30 is the sweet spot.
Yeah, currently, which is why 70-30 is a sweet spot. Now, there are other companies that do 75-25, and those towels are great as well also. There's no problem there. The biggest thing, though, is when you delve into below 80-20 and you go into that 93-7, that 95-5, that 90-10, or, God forbid, you get 100% polyester microfiber towels because those exist.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Or they mix them with a different version of fiber.
Right, yeah.
They'll take a cotton poly microfiber and blend it with polyester again and some polyamide. And those are when you see a biconstituent microfiber blend that they just make up. The worry is you're losing absorbency and you're losing softness.
Yes.
And that's the biggest reason why people. The other thing, the reason that it's so cheap is because of the quality of the yarn. So the one thing that we do at the Rag Company is everything is AA grade yarn, which is the highest grade, just like a cut of beef.
The best we can get our hands on.
Wagyu towels. They're Wagyu towels.
We go for the best, highest quality yarn, and we send that yarn to both our factories to make our towels. And the yarn is key because big box stores are built to a price point, and they have to hit that price point every year, regardless if costs increase. So the very first cost of manufacturing a towel is that yarn quality. And Costco Kirkland Signature towels used to be really, really good 10 years ago. They were a nice towel.
80-20 standard, good stuff.
Nothing wrong with it. But they had to hold to that 80-20 blend, 320 GSM. That was the rule. And so Kirkland Signature said, these two numbers cannot change. Has to be an 80-20, has to be 320 GSM, cannot change. So the factory has to go,
how are we going to save money?
How do we save money on that? So they bring down the quality of the yarn. The quality of the yarn is key because what that refers to is the construction of the towel, the ability to hold color better, the ability to wash more often, and have a towel that works longer for you. And so that's when I say it's not about the cost, it's about the cost per use.
Right.
And if you're paying for a Costco towel and you're getting one use out of it and you're happy with that, that's fine. But you're never going to get more than 5 to 6 to 10 maybe tops out of that towel, where we've got folks going on 50, 60 uses of this towel before they throw it away or demote it. And that's the key. If you take care of your tools, they take care of you.
Yep. And I think that it's also putting it in the context of what you're using it for.
Yep.
So I have box store towels, but I use them, when the dog vomits on the floor, or if it's the back side of the wheels where you're getting a bunch of brake dust, and you're not going to use that on the paint. You're just not going to. It's contaminated. And literally, I'm dry sanding single stage paint before putting, and you're wiping the dust off. It's not something where you're not wanting the marring and all that, because if you're buying towels and tearing the tags off, there's some of that tag that remains. You're going to mar the paint.
Well, it's just the fact that there are some paints that are really soft. There's some clear that an 80-20 towel will scratch it.
Yeah.
Period. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And that was what actually drew me to the Rag Company, was I was watching myself scratch a car, and I remember that was the first time it clicked in my head, and I was using Kirkland Signature. I've been using them for a decade. And I was looking at the surface and I was like, I'm seeing something. Like, this is not supposed to be happening. I'm polishing out a surface. As soon as I'm wiping, I'm putting scratches in. I go across, I'm putting scratches in, pull out my polisher, I repolish the section. I go to wipe and I put scratches in. I go a different angle and I put scratch. And I was like, the heck is happening? I'm scratching this car. And I take the towel, I go get a new one, I rip the tag off, I fold it up, I make sure I'm just right, I wipe again, I scratch it. I go grab another towel that's freshly washed, same thing, and I'm like, all these towels were the same 80-20 blend, they didn't work. And that's when I did my search and started to find, how do I find a better towel? How do I learn, how do I make, I want a towel that's just a little bit better than this. And that was that change. Once I learned and met the Rag Company, and I met Dane and I met his family, I bought a bunch of towels. I did this. I basically bought a pile of different stuff. And I went back. I called that car, bring it back in. I'm going to polish it again for you. And I'm going to see, and I'm going to test different weights, different towels, different fibers, and see which ones aren't scratching and why.
And
I remember I came back and asked your dad, and I was like, what is the difference? This towel scratches, this towel doesn't. What are the differences between them? Or this towel and a Costco towel, what are the differences? Right. And he goes, well, that's a 70-30 blend. That means it's going to do this. And I go, holy cow.
Oh, wow.
The biggest lesson to be learned from that, if he didn't spell it out clearly enough already, is the fact that that cheap towel just ended up costing you more money than if you spent a little more on a better towel and gone and done the job once. because time is money when you're an operator. So that's something you always have to be
and it never happened in my career until that day when it did happen.
You're always going to have that moment where it's like, here's the first time this thing happened.
Yeah, and that's when I was like, have I been scratching cars my whole career?
Oh, my God. Yeah, don't look back too far.
Master of scratches.
So that actually brings us to the next question.
Okay.
How much do we need to be concerned about color transferring on and off of towels depending on what chemicals you're using? Because some of the chemicals we're using are harsh, right? So when are we concerned? When are we not concerned between the different types of towels?
For color fastness or just the
color fastness and the chemicals we're using on them?
So that's why we usually the reason we make so many different colors. But if you're using heavy, I'll just say this, we create some of our most vivid colors in towels that you're not going to be using the most high alkaline detergent with to clean. So you're not going to be using this towel to do all-purpose, use all-purpose cleaner and clean the surface with. But if you choose to use like a towel like this as your main workhorse towel, you are going to get some color loss. But we do things where we try to create certain dyeing features when we dye to make sure that they are going to stay as best as they can. But at the end of the day, they're still fabric dyes.
Yeah.
And if I wash this towel and this towel together, this is going to get a little more of this color, and this is going to be a little darker blue. Or if I mix, these towels in with it, this is going to start to turn. It's going to pull color regardless.
Right. It's just like your regular laundry.
It's just your regular laundry.
But especially if you're using, and somebody mentioned APC on there. If you're using like an APC or some other really harsh chemical,
it's going to lose.
You're going to lose it. You can dye a spot on a towel, and I think the question, which I know who.
Well, that's why we do like yellow is mostly an interior, or a light blue are usually our interior colors. We don't like doing reds and blacks because those are the hardest to dye.
And those are the colors that every detailer wants for towels.
They look cool.
Because they look cool. So you get stuck with
I
that
will
every
say
time.
our black edges, this edge on these towels, we use what's called a chip dye. And a chip dye is a different, it's more of an impregnation process for that dye. And so we have less chance of dye transfer with those, which is why you see that.
That's an added expense too, by the way. That is a pretty pricey extra component that we do strategically on the ones that we think really will need it.
Well, a couple weeks ago, I had a disaster at my home, and so water went all over my laundry room, and so I had to grab towels, and I'm absorbing everything, right?
Yeah.
And I take a trip to the laundromat because I don't want that stuff in my house.
Sure.
And I see this guy literally as I'm pulling up, load my stuff up. He comes out with bags and bags, probably 4 bags of towels. He's clearly a detailer. And I'm watching him just dump the towels in. And they are every color possible.
Yeah.
So how do you care for properly these towels?
So that's on you and your personal preference. But basically, what I break it down is you want glass towels to stay separate. You want your paint towels to stay separate from your interior towels, and then your all-purpose skunky, dirty job towels be your last towels. The biggest key is using the proper quality detergent. So what we usually say is any microfiber detergent designed to clean, like not restore or not a refresh,
right?
But a microfiber cleaner. So like Micro Restore is a great one. Rags to Riches obviously is the best. And then if you don't have that, the next best would be a free and clear detergent option. Now, the problem with free and clear is free and clear was designed for food. That's what it's really designed. It's designed to take out body odor and food stains off of your clothes. It's not really designed to handle greases, dirts, detergents, things that come from vehicles. So Micro Restore was developed a long time ago, but it's still great, and it was our benchmark when we were testing to build Rags to Riches. It is designed to not damage microfiber because sometimes people don't realize, and they make their own cleaner, or they use APC, or they use this. The problem is you end up drying out the fiber so much that it becomes like dry brush. The
Oh,
next
yeah.
time you use it,
Oh, yeah.
You leach color out.
yeah, it also leaches color. The next time you use it, you basically have it's literally like walking through a bunch of dry branches. You're just snapping these twigs off.
Yeah.
And that's when people go, "Oh my gosh, my towels are linting."
Yeah.
Well, it might have been an overwashed towel that wasn't washed properly
Chemically
or
fried.
burned or it's chemically flayed, and so it breaks, and that's what you get on the surface. Then the advent of detailing and the way it's changed and the ability, back in the day we were just removing waxes with towels and maybe a little bit of quick detailer. We're not putting on sealants that have SiO2s and graphene and all this stuff that people like now and the ease of use of spraying and protecting. So now we have stuff that's in the towel that we can't get out. So we've effectively protected our paint with the latest and greatest, but our towels are also equally just as protected and taken care of from those elements.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I just ruined my towel.
Right.
So Rags to Riches was designed to remove and pull those sealants out as well. But also the way we describe it is it's like a bouncer at a bar, right? Take those SiO2s, those graphene components. They're the drunk guy at the bar. They're picking a fight. They're
whoa. Where
starting
you
a
going,
fight.
Hold on.
The bouncer comes in and grabs them, kicks them out of the bar. But it's the bouncer's job to make sure they don't come back in and start throwing beer bottles and stuff like that. And that's exactly what we tasked with Dave Phillips. And this is his analogy. He goes, I had to figure out, how do I pull that product, how do I extract it out of the fiber while it's in a wash? So a bucket of, for instance, was a bucket of water being agitated, right? How do I create a chemical to go in, pull those products out, but then keep them from reattaching to the towel while it's in the liquid?
Right.
And that's literally what it was he goes, I had to create a bouncer to literally tell the drunk to stay out. Hey, buddy, go sleep it off. Like, you're not welcome here anymore. And that's kind of the way Rags to Riches works.
And that wasn't something that really existed before. So.
No.
No, and I think that's the problem with, and I love that analogy because I think there's a lot of people that just throw everything in the wash,
Right.
or whatever, and you're like, okay, that towel you got APC, you got some acid
In
real
your
And you
cleaner,
just put it on your glass
in with
towel.
your glass towel and your drying towel,
Yeah.
and you're going to transfer that stuff. There's no way you can't.
And then you wonder why your glass towels suck the next day to use in glass.
I've got this film all over my windows. It must be fill in the blank, right? It must be that waterless wash I'm using.
Yeah.
No, it's the towel that you just washed with your,
It's
other
glass
junk.
towels and the last step towels are the two you have to be the absolute most careful with, because otherwise you're just going to torture yourself trying to
Right.
make something work when you're fighting uphill, pushing a giant boulder uphill.
So I'm going to insert a question here
Yeah,
that
go
came in
for it.
that's
Bring
not
it.
on the list,
No, keep
but
it going.
this is a perfect spot for it. Is people talking about ceramic coatings and reusing those towels?
So this
a
is
popular
something
question.
So I'm a big I'm a big proponent of it, of reusing, because it goes back to my cost per use analysis.
Right.
There's a caveat, though.
So we created pearl weaves because many coating companies were starting to say we like pearls because of their leveling ability and the fact that it's an extremely tight, dense weave, and it doesn't leave lint. It's almost 100% lint free.
Tight has bite.
And it has bite to where it actually can work, and it's still got great absorption. So the orange is a 80-20, the purple's a 70-30. So the goal of the towels, you use it, you've spent the money on them. My goal is that I'm going to use this towel to wipe down my coatings with, and then I'm going to take those towels, and what we do is I usually like to put a bucket of Rags to Riches, maybe an ounce of Rags to Riches, and a couple gallons of water. And I put that behind the car, and it's just part of my coating prep. I set that up, and then I take my towels, I stack the towels that I'm going to use, if it's going to be 5 or 6 or whatever. If I've got a shop and I've got a couple cars going, and I'm doing 2 coatings at once, hey, here's the bucket in the middle of the cars, here's the spot where I put the towels. When we're done wiping each panel off and we're done using the towel, and we need to put it in our bin, instead of putting it in a bin or a spot, we're going to put it in Rags to Riches. And we're going to soak that towel. And we're just going to push it down, get it wet, grab the next towel, start working, take that towel, put it in there, squish it down. The key is to get the towels wet. The rag switches are going to do the job. That bouncer is going to come in. He's going to try and grab as many of those molecules as he can, and he's going to pull them out and keep them out while the towels are in the liquid. It's also going to prevent the coating from hardening or absorbing in the towel.
Yep.
Now, it's not going to prevent 100%, but we're going to take those towels, we're going to pull them out of the water, throw them in the wash, and we're going to wash those towels.
Together, not with other towels.
Not with other towels,
again.
but by themselves,
Yep.
right? The coating towels are getting washed with the coating towels. When they're done, they become my interior towels.
Yep.
Or my dirty job towels, or my door jamb towels, or whatever I need. But that's how I'm going to use them, and I'm going to use them over and over again. I'll probably get 5 more interiors out of them, 5 other cars out of them. So now I've got 6 total uses. And if this towel's costing me $1.20, I can divide that by 6.
Right.
And now I've got a towel that's costing me, say, 20 cents.
Yep. So
And a Costco towel now costs 58 cents a towel.
Well, and anywhere you
So
were
people are
going
going
to
to use that and throw it.
you
All
can
right,
use
fine.
this.
But you could use it twice, and you're still going to be at that same price. But you're going to get an extra use, and it's not going to hurt an interior plastic. It's not going to hurt an interior, leather seat. It's not going to hurt to clean all the gunk out of a cup holder.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not going to hurt. You can take it, you get it, and you're like, all right, now it's in with the interior
Plastic
towels.
door jam covers.
Yeah, it's gonna go live with those towels now. And people go, yeah, but I color code. That's fine, but you color code your towels the right way. So these towels could fit with my yellow towels for my interior, and if they're already in the interior bin of towels, use them.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the nice, fresh version of these that we're going to use to remove the coating live in a different spot, so that you always are using the nicest version of that towel.
No, I
Before
love
he
that.
reads this next question, I'm going to ask that all of you watching right now, please do us all a favor here. Click that like button. It'll only take you a second, but it helps us out. We're helping grow the podcast channel because that's where our Q&As are going to be here from now on. And we might do more tech talks like this if you guys like it. So it could be fun if you guys wind up with questions that you
And
want
of
to bring
course,
by. And
go
stuff.
check out Rod and Jody's podcast.
Obviously, I was going to say
right.
next. See that logo in the corner? That's their logo. Make sure you find that and go over to Facebook. You can follow you guys and click like on your page as well.
Perfect.
So, hopefully you guys
Thank
do
you.
that.
Well, this was perfect because I wanted to put it in there because the next question is about how you repurpose towels, which you just went over. Now, how do you determine when it is time to retire, other than just, you're tearing it apart and it's a mess and it's, your old 400-year-old underwear.
So-
It's ready to go.
So I had this conundrum this weekend. I used up all my towels last weekend, and I didn't wash any of them yet. So I literally was going to grab another box before I left this weekend, and then I thought, no, I need to go through my towels. I need to go through and see which ones I'm keeping. So that is time, and that is technically a Saturday afternoon project where you're gonna sit down, even if it's a kitchen table, and go through your towels, and you're gonna inspect them, and you're gonna look at them and see, what do I want to use them for? If you pull one open and like this one's been used and it's got some stains on it, but for all intensive purposes, if you feel the towel, there's nothing that's going to limit it from doing its job.
Right. It's not all crusty and gross. And
Got plenty of life
I would
left.
still use this towel.
Right. But what would you use it for?
Interiors.
Right.
Wheels.
Or windows
Wheels,
or
the
wheels
door
or
jams.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still a good towel.
Yeah.
And that could be washed a couple more times as long as it's not beaten up.
Yep.
We've got this towel has been used a lot and has been washed a lot.
You can tell
and
by the
this
color.
tall you can feel feels different than
Yes,
that towel.
this one's a little crusty.
It's a little crustier, right? So it feels just a little. You're more like,
Yeah,
this might do shop duty.
Yeah.
this might be
That's-
might be a bathroom towel. This might be a floor towel. This might be a, oh crap, we spilled oil on the floor. Let's grab that.
Yeah.
And it's all about inspecting and feeling the towels to see what their job is, right? And that's where it goes. This towel has been washed probably 10 times.
Wow.
Alejandro, that's a good
This
tactic.
wheel feels good.
This one still feels great.
Yeah.
For being washed 10 times.
And what I do is I will take my towels and I'll go through and I will pick the ones that I'll fold them, And these are going back in the garage. These are still going to be used for this job, this job, this job. Towels like the blue towel are going to go in a different section. And those are my home cleaning towels. And those are for when the cat throws up, my kids spill water somewhere, I need to wipe down the walls or the floors or something. I have a basket that I set on top of the washing machine of towels that I can use once and throw away.
Yeah.
If an animal has an accident and I got to clean, I don't want to use house towels. I don't want to go through paper towels. I'm just going to use those. I'm going to clean up the surface. I'm going to clean everything, and I'm going to throw it. And I'm sorry that's the way that guy has to, goes out in a blaze of glory. but it really is a Saturday afternoon sitting at your kitchen table or your lunch table at work or whatever and inspecting the towels. And some people do different things. Some people mark a corner, and they'll permanent marker. They'll just mark it like, okay, this is now entering its second use, and it's got a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and they'll go mark the towels so that when they get ready to toss it or kill it, they can go, well, I got like 7 uses out of this, or I got 10 uses out of it, or whatever, and they feel better because they go, all right, this towel cost me this much. I used it this many times. Now I know how much I'm. And once you get into that process, it's not so hard to spend money on quality when it's that way. And we used to joke, our old website used to say, we make the highest quality towels that are designed to last you a really long time. And that's probably not a good thing, considering most people think towels are a consumable product. But we're trying to sell you a towel that you don't have to go through as many times. You don't need to throw away a towel.
Because everyone else
use it right.
Trying to be cheap and just sell you the most disposable, quickest, cheapest, whatever towel it can be. If you go into stores, that's usually the kind you'll find. So we thought, hey, what better tactic is there than to try and take the opposite approach and be like, all right, it's going to last you a long time. Hopefully you remember our name by the time you actually need to get a new one.
Yeah.
Well, and we have a dairy. We had this recently. We had this talk.
Yeah.
We told the whole company this story at our company party last week. We had a dairy farmer that would buy our towels, and they would use our terry towels, and they would use them to clean out the milking devices, like the tubes that they hook up to cattle. And they would put them in a wash that was only wet. It was a water extractor, and it would run just like a car wash style it just wash them. It would leave them slightly damp, but they would use them to clean all the tubes, and that was what they were designed for. And the reason they liked them was because microfiber on its own removes 99.9% of all bacteria on the surface, and just with the water alone. And so they were like, we're cleaning these to a very high standard without inducing chemicals or anything else, and that's not hurting the cattle, and it's not going in your milk.
Yeah.
And so that's why they use them. We found they were getting 1,000 washes out of our towels before they were switching towels.
4 digits, my man.
But we're talking no chemicals and all
No
that.
chemicals, just
and
water.
no drying, because
No
no drying
drying.
is where you start to.
So, but they would just wash them with water, but the towels were holding structure for 1,000 washes.
Wow.
Before they would throw them away and get new towels.
That's on some of our most basic.
That was our basic
just basic
Terry
that
style.
was a 320
microfiber
GSM 8020 Terry towel.
That's
nothing,
insane.
nothing remarkable compared to the rest of our lineup, but they hold up.
So there's 2 things there. First off, this is going to go into some deep things, so I may cry.
No, of course.
Just kidding. I very rarely get rid of towels.
Yeah.
I take them when they start feeling crunchy. I literally, because I do a lot of stuff in my shop with old cars, I fold them up and I get them to about 3 or 4 inches, and then these are the tops of my jack stands when I raise a car.
Yeah.
So there's a cushion there, and it's not damaging the frame or anything like that. I have towels like this that I give every one of my kids that go in the door jamb, and you know that it's dusty and crappy and you're never going to touch paint again. But I'm like, hey, if you spill something in the car, if you need to wipe off the window in the winter, if you feel like you're going to get sick, I don't care what it is, somebody's bleeding, put it in the car. You've got a
Backseat
towel.
pocket,
whatever.
whatever. Yeah.
So they probably got 2 or 3 in each one of their cars. My wife the other day was driving her car to Costco, and we've got a Volkswagen Atlas. She goes in the back and she's like, what's this bag of, and it's a whole bag of Eagle edges. She's like, what is this bag of? I'm like, in case you go to the car wash and you decide you're going to dry your towel with something, you're going to use this.
Yeah.
So the other one is, I really encourage people to not leave the towels off of the cost of your details, this is a consumable, and even if it's 20 cents a use or 40 cents a use, you've got to build that into the price of your detail so that it becomes a non-issue. You know, we tell people like that all the time with our softwares, make it a non-issue. You know, that $50 a month is nothing. Build it into the detail. These towels, if this is $1.29 at the end of the day or $3 or whatever, put that in. There's a consumable inside of the detail. Even if it's a basic interior, basic exterior, build in the price of your towels so that you can buy the best equipment you can. It's the same thing with your polisher, your pads, anything. But the towels, you use so many of them on a detail. You can use the same polisher for a whole detail if you're lucky, but you can't just use one towel. You're not going to use that and you're done.
Yeah,
right?
But that goes right back to that cost per use. I have the very first Rupes in the state of Idaho. The very first, I got it in like 2012. One of the very first 21s ever. And that thing did probably 4,000 cars in the time period that I had it in use. And I replaced probably 12 or 14 sets of brushes. I replaced probably 5 power cords. That thing put in work. And when you look at it and go, holy crap, and you sit back and actually look and go, that thing touched 4,000 cars over the course of 8 years, or 5 years. That's a ton of vehicles.
Yeah.
And it was $420 when I bought it.
Right, and you divide that by 4,000.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and it was like, holy cow, this thing has put in work. And that was something I did early on in my shop when I first started my shop 10 years ago. I was doing production detailing for dealerships, and that was my first real account. I hadn't brought on any retail customers for the first 6 months. I said, let me get my numbers. Let me get myself figured out. I'll just do these cars at $125, $125, and every car was the same. And I bought all my chemicals at the start of that month, and towels, chemicals, and equipment. And I pulled the equipment off, but I did just my consumables for that month. And then at the end of the month, I figured out what I needed to restock, what I was using, what I used a lot of, and I calculated, I got 2 gallons out of this 5 or 2.5 gallons of this out of this 5, and I take half of the cost. Mm-hmm. And I would break that out, and I go, this is what it cost. This is how many cars I detail. And then I was able to figure out exactly, if I'm doing this, this is how much it costs. So 100 cars will cost this much per car in all of these products.
Right.
And it got down to the point I was putting this one type of wax on. It's a pro product called La Cera Amarilla. And it's just a simple,
a song about it,
it's
too.
a simple yellow wax that you would hand wax. You just put on and take off. It came off super simple and lasted for about 3 months. That product I figured out was costing me about 6 cents a car to detail it, like to put it on. Mm-hmm. And that was it, the cost of it. And I remember when I got to that, I was like, what? And I'm cutting it with water. What I was doing was I was getting the applicator sponge wet, damp, and then I would put the wax on because it would push better, and I could go through less product that way. And that was just a trick I learned to be faster. Yeah. But it was something I was like, holy cow, this stuff's barely costing me anything to
but
do
you
a car.
Still
but I
add
learned
that.
my costs.
Yeah,
and
you
I
still
learned
add
it.
that into your costs. And I think there's so many people that don't think about that because, I mean, if you go to a shop and they do work on your car, a mechanical shop, right, there's consumables. Look at the bottom of an invoice. There's consumables. They charge you for shop towels and uniforms and everything they use. So you've got to calculate that in. And no, you're not. This may be the first time you've used it or the last time you're going to use it, but you got to build in some costs there.
Well, and I think that's the hardest part, and it's one of the things that was the hardest part for me growing up in this industry. But it's now become like it's getting to be the norm. Mm-hmm. For a long time, people didn't understand. You know, you go to you'd go to a tattoo parlor, they'd have a minimum. We're not doing nothing for less than $50 or $100. Mm-hmm. Like, don't even waste our time. Even if it was this big, there was a minimum.
Right.
This is it.
Yeah.
And I remember going in there, I'm being 19, 20 years old, and going, well, it's a $100 minimum. I just got to do it. I'd still get tattooed. I'd still get whatever I was going to get. But you learned right off the bat, or you'd make an appointment, and they'd take a deposit.
Oh, yeah.
And so many people, I remember going like, well, I have to pay my deposit. That way I can go into my job, and it was a $300 detail or a $300 tattoo. and I'd put $25 or $50 down to
I better
make the
show up. I
appointment.
made that deposit.
Yeah,
You'll
it's
show up.
going to it's going to the tattoo, but it was something that I never in a million years thought, gosh, I should do this for my details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then, same thing with like hairdressers. They're selling you, hey, you want to buy this shampoo? Do you want to buy this pomade that I just put in your hair? Wow, it smells good. What is that? Oh, I just put that. I've got a jar right here for $40 you can buy, or $30. I never thought I should be selling products after this. Like I should be selling care products.
Add-on features, baby.
Yeah.
There's little things that
The
a lot of
aftercare.
people don't, but it's the same thing. I remember I dated a girl who was a hairstylist or a hairdresser, and that's what she did. She'd go in, she'd buy all the chemicals that she needed to do hair, to color hair, to do all that stuff. She'd spend that money, and then she would build that into her costs. And I remember watching her at the kitchen table doing this one day. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, this is how much of each. I bought $1,000 worth of product. This is how long it's going to last me. This is all this stuff, so I can do any color, anything. And I remember just being a detailer, like I just ordered my products and I detail a car, and I never thought of these numbers and go.
You didn't look at it
I
strategically.
never looked at it strategically, and that's one of the things that so many people don't think about, these little things that other businesses do. That they start charging for, and it's become second nature. But restaurants do it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have a cost of food. Like they know exactly how much food they're making in each one of those meals that you're buying from them. They have a
Yeah.
fixed cost.
So last question.
All right.
Well, sort of. Okay.
You
Go.
got one?
I got
okay.
two.
Some
You got
more.
two. Go for it.
I have
Your
one.
last
So I only
one.
have one. So what is the big deal about country of origin?
Oh,
So country of origin is based on where the microfiber comes from. The reason that many of them come from Korea, South Korea, and China is because microfiber originated in that part of the world.
Okay.
It was originally developed in Japan, and then it has been replicated. It was developed in Japan in like 1964 or something like that. And so microfiber, they've built the structures and they built the capacity to manufacture in those countries, which is why they are still made there. We would love nothing more than to create microfiber in the U.S., but we do not have the industry of scale for that. The other thing is the cost would be absolutely
Yes.
insane.
you would
Because
not
it's
buy
not
those towels.
just a factory, it's a series of factories. There's dye houses, there's weave houses, there's blend houses, there's all kinds of stuff in which they blend the yarn. They have to make the yarn first. So they have to make that blend of yarn. Then it goes to a weaving facility where you give them the yarn and they make these weaves and they develop and create that type of weave, or they're good at it. There's some that aren't. Then you got to go to a dye house. There's some dye houses that can do a really cool color. There's other ones that just don't have the capacity for
different
it.
specialties, but
And-
people fail to understand just how divided, how segmented out this process is. People look and go, I think I know what factory makes this one thing. And it's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
You know, maybe who
They're-
cut our
Yeah,
fiber.
you're like, okay, maybe you figured out one segment of it, but there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
And it's like super strategic figuring out which one is going to be right for which product. Like there's differences along the way.
Yeah, and we found there's different quality control at different factories. There's different things. So the reason for the fact is South Korea does it very well. They're very good at it, and China does it very well.
Yep.
And so our factories that we've the
Hopefully
reason
not, Scott.
no, but the factories we use we've had as relationships almost as long as we've been in business, which is nearly 20 years. And there's a reason for that, because we know the quality that comes out of each one of our factories, and we're able to work with that. We're always looking, because there's always innovation.
Sure.
And so we're always looking to see maybe someone can make this towel a little better. But for lack of a better term, we have the factories that we have, and they work for exactly what we need. And we're always on the lookout to make sure that our quality stays 100% all the way through.
Perfect. So this question is I love this question. We're not going to tell who said it, but he knows.
Oh.
But this is one of those frustration questions that got shot to us, and I already know part of the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it just because it's fun. So, what is the best towel for a black
car for polish removal because everything is scratching this damn Viper. So that's the exact way we got it. So I know that has a lot to do with the paint and
It has a lot. It depends on the product you're using. It depends on how you get
So we're talking Mopar Clear here. It's a Viper. We know the certain years, so.
Really, like that Eagle 350 right there in front of you is probably your best bet
here.
You can't go wrong.
So that's why we call it. That's why we call it the detailer's towel. It really is the one that you use for that. The 365, the blue 365 there, that's an everyday towel. That's why it's 300. Right. It just so happens that it's 365 GSM, but the reason it's 365 is it's an everyday towel. You use it for 365 days out of the year, and it'll do everything you need it to do for every job. If you were to stuck detailing a car and you only had one towel, it would be that blue towel there.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
And you could do the whole car, no problem. Those are really your two best bets. If you don't have those in your arsenal, then and they're still scratching, then it becomes a pressure point situation, and you need more cushion to reduce those. Yeah, to reduce those. So that's when you step up in thickness. Maybe you go from 365 to the 420 Spectrum. Or you go
creatures and spectrums are where it's at for a lot of people for price meets the density.
Or you go Eagle from 350 to 500.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And there's one of them. There's one of them you guys created once that was super fluffy. It had a lot of lint. Your dad hated it. Okay. And I literally have boatloads.
Probably
of them.
The 1100.
Yeah,
the original 1100.
It probably was because
fluffy.
we were actually loading up from a show once from Mobile Tech Expo several years ago, and I ran out of packing material and
like Santa Claus.
So literally, Dad's like, you know what? Here, and he gave me a stack of towels. He's like, just use this for packing. So I have a bunch of, but this is actually, and this is what I was going to recommend when he asked that question anyway, because this is the combination I have, and I love these normally, but I have had this on some super soft. Yeah. It's like, why? Like you said, why am I scratching this? Is this got scuff on it? What have I got going on?
And the weave of these,
what it is just the weight of your hand is causing those, and there's just not enough cushion to stop that, and let the fiber do its job.
Yeah, I want to do a video someday where we come in and literally show the right angle, 45-degree angle, see the paint, and take just my hand with no fold and go along and show the scratches where your fingers are.
You can see how defined the pressure points are.
Right.
With
because
each towel.
If you weren't so heavy-handed,
I know. It's just it's these meats, with this picture of Anthony behind me. So I think the key there, it's like with sanding, right? Mm-hmm. And we had the opportunity of being here when Jason Kilmer was in here showing, and literally people don't understand the pressure points of either your fingertips, your palm, or whatever you're doing. So that's one of the other reasons that for folding a towel, you're just increasing the thickness. Yep. You get some more cushion there, and not that you're going to get a backing plate. You shouldn't be that heavy-handed, but I think people don't understand if you just have a towel open and you're going along, you're whipping along, you're going to scratch it. So
well, the way to offset using too much pressure, if you have a towel like this, for example, where you got the 350 GSM or so on the Eagle. The Eagle material is going to be a little more gentle, a little more forgiving as you move across the surface. However, if you move to like a creature edgeless, where it still has a similar length pile on one side but a shorter length pile on the other, you're close. That's a 420 GSM towel. However, it has more bite, I think, than the Eagle 350 even necessarily does. It's a little less give as you roll over a surface. You can actually pull more while still introducing less pressure. I think things like that are the little bit of nuance that people can pick up on and try and introduce into their work.
Yeah. Then somebody mentioned a question there, Tom, about where you're storing them. Absolutely. I think that it's interesting is to go back to your training and what you're supposed to do with towels and everything. You're not going to store them by throwing them in the back of the trunk. They have, if I've done it, I think every single person's done it. You've picked up a towel, it's perfectly clean. You start going along, you see a scratch, you look up, and there's a little thing in the towel.
Uh-huh.
So you need to make sure that that's up there. But I think this was a frustration question that we got after last week's. But I think everybody's been there. You've had that hard paint.
Sure.
I've got a Chevy pickup, and I know if I go like that, I'm going to chip the paint because it's so brittle.
Well, yeah.
So you have to learn the surfaces, and thank you, Vipers.
So while you went through all your questions, I was saving a few as we went along. I can actually answer those. Some may be quicker than others, but let's go ahead and give them the time of day. Let's go ahead and answer some of these. Number one, common question. Scott's asking, what causes a microfiber towel to lint?
Oh, gosh. So
there's so many possibilities.
100 things. So there's a couple things that can happen. The most common is that the towel is dead. And you've put a dead towel in with new towels. Number one thing that happens, they have a couple towels, they got a fresh new towels, like pack of towels, and they're like, well, I want to wash my new towels, and these are still good, and they wash them all together. Mm-hmm. That's the number one problem and number one cause for linting is people have washed these and they washed this. The reason is microfiber is a bunch of hands with fingers, and their job is to grab stuff. That's just what their job is. And new microfiber will grab the old microfiber and start pulling stuff out, and they'll just pull things out of each other. If you think of two kids, little kids fighting, they're just grabbing. The problem is they're going to grab lint, especially on a towel that's going to be more brittle and already old age.
And then you get the false impression that, oh, my towels are linting, when really it's like maybe one or two caused the initial issue.
And that's what we said.
Contamination
There's
everywhere.
one or two towels that are the offender. Or there's a bad edge on a towel that you maybe didn't get from the rag company. And that towel is not fully sealed as an edge. Because when they're cut, if they're a laser cut, they're cut with the laser. If the laser moves too slow, it melts the end. If it moves too fast, it doesn't fully cauterize the wound. So that towel is still bleeding, if you imagine it. It's bleeding fiber.
Yeah.
And when you throw it in with the fresh towels, that towel is bleeding fiber, and it's basically putting blood all over your towel. Right. But it's a bunch of little microfiber.
Right.
Yeah. And now you're like, oh, crap. So that's why we always recommend when you wash new towels and you get your first batch of towels, wash them with themselves, by themselves. Don't ever put other towels in with them. That way you don't ruin your new set. Also, it's a quality control thing.
Yeah.
If those new towels and you go to wash and you lint, there's probably an offending towel in there, and then you can divvy up from that. If it's 10 towels, split them up 5 and 5 and do 2 different loads. It kind of sucks to do that, but usually you do that and you find out that one load doesn't lint. Cool. The other one does. Take that 5, split them up into 2 or 3, wash those.
You're a detective.
And
You're getting to the bottom of it.
You literally can find
Microfiber
out who it
CSI.
is.
Yes.
But the main reason is care and proper washing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wash wrong, or they mix them in with the wrong towel, and that causes the problem. So that's the main reason. Very rarely, we had one instance a few years ago in which the dye houses were over dyeing too long for a product, and a number of microfiber companies, we all got together and started because we were having issues. This was many years ago. They were using a chemical that caused the towels to become brittle very quickly. So they come out of the dye and then they were almost damaged right off the bat. We had to go through and cull a massive amount of product.
That is a very not fun
along
project.
with a bunch of others from other companies that had to do the exact same thing because of a certain batch that just was bad.
Oh, man.
But that has only happened once in maybe 17 years of towel manufacturing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it was a huge deal. But it's something to think about, is that there's always stuff. The key is to be a detective, use the best practices, make sure that you wash your towels by themselves, make sure that you're organizing your towels properly, make sure you're not mixing weaves together. That's another thing. A lot of people will mix stuff. It depends on the weaves and how they can fight and work together, so to speak. So,
all right, next up we got Franco, not with the wash and order special linting unit, but rather with Franco's question here. Man, I got some Micro Restore detergent from Autofiber, and it doesn't clean nearly as good as the white bottle all laundry detergent. Free and clear, probably.
Yeah.
Is Rags to Riches the same, or does it have cleaning power? We kind of addressed this already, but feel free to
So
kind of
Franco,
reiterate.
Micro Restore is a great detergent, and it works perfect for your towels. All Free and Clear is also a great. The difference is between those and Rags to Riches is, like I said, Free and Clear. All Free and Clear is designed to clean your clothes and remove food stains and body odor and stuff from your clothing. Micro Restore is designed to clean your towels properly, but the only thing it can't do is it doesn't pull the SiO2s and sealants and waxes more. So
it can pull like more basic waxes and sealants.
It'll
but when you
clean
get to the
great.
modern
It has
stuff,
been the industry standard for a very long time. The new modern style stuff, SiO2s,
some
things
ceramic
like that,
stuff,
is what Rags to Riches is designed to do. The other thing is, Rags to Riches has what we call the necromancer feature. And what it's designed to do is revive a dead towel.
Yeah, no, if
Nice.
it's looking a little sad
I love that name.
dead,
It's like a little.
there's a good chance that Rags to Riches is worth at least trying on it because
Yeah.
you may get your towel back.
And what we
Maybe.
say is
There you
if
go.
you've got a towel that you love drying with and it just doesn't dry anymore and you've washed it a couple times, what you do is you take that towel and you soak it in Rags to Riches and water for 24 to 48 hours. Let it soak and let those bouncers come in and clean the place up and do what needs to be done.
big old
Then
barroom
put it in the
brawl.
wash. And many people have said, "Holy cow.
Yeah, I've heard
This
that
drying
multiple
towel died," and
times.
I was able to get it back with Rags to Riches.
I've heard a lot of people that do that pre-soak, and not
Yeah.
for a long period of time. I actually heard a lot of people do that with their pads.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that
They'll
pads
do
too.
it
are
for
a
a
popular
short
one,
period of
too.
time. You don't want them to separate.
Yeah, but you can do that. You can wash your
yeah.
pads the same way with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, next up, I've got Scott here asking, what about dye transferring to another surface while you're using the towel? I've never had an issue, but could it
So,
ever be a problem?
yes.
I have heard of such instances.
We had an issue like that years ago.
White car, blue towel.
Yeah, we had a white car, blue towel, but
Sunlight.
they used a heavy solvent.
Uh-huh.
And then it's their own fault. They
Straight
left the
up.
towel on the surface of the car
For
Yeah.
hours?
for hours in the hot sun.
I was gonna say
While
it
the
sunbaked
chemical
it, didn't it?
While the chemical was active on the surface, not neutralized. It was in the towel and it was on the clear.
Yeah.
What's it going to do? Is the clear just opens
Sucked it up.
sucks that stuff in. Oh, I'm going to take some of the towel's color with me while I go into this clear, and then it eventually dries up.
So
and
that's
now you've got
that was a
embedded
user
blue
error
in your paint.
in the sense that
Yikes.
they did that. Now, the rule I have is no colored towel will be able to stand up to a solvent.
No.
So if you're working on a white car and you're going to use that blue 365 and you're going to put lacquer thinner on it and you're going to go wipe the tar off the white car with that, you may get one pass.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any more than that
Right.
because that blue is going to start transferring into the clear coat of that vehicle. And then you're going to have blue streaks in the white car. So I will
That's
always
not
say
the towel's fault. I can't stress enough. Also,
I
they're
will
really
always
enjoying
say
writing
use
that
a
out.
white car or white towel on if you're going to use solvents. We sell white microfiber for a reason.
Sure.
Yep.
You can buy white. You can use white cotton. You can use white microfiber, and you can do that as best as you can when you use a solvent. If you're using just your regular APCs and stuff, yes, you'll have that, but never leave a wet towel on a surface.
Yeah.
Period. It's the same thing. If you take your blue jeans and you get them wet and you go throw those on the hood of your car,
You're gonna get.
you're going to
blue
have the
transfer.
same
Yeah,
transfer. It's a
right.
dye. If you take
Yeah.
your hoodie and you soak it and you just let it sit on the surface, there's tendency that dye is going to transfer
If
regardless.
it's a dyed
So
fabric, it could happen.
it's all in how you handle
Yeah.
your stuff.
Yep.
Next up, Franco. I recently did my first compounded polish and finished with Adam's advanced graphene spray coating and used my Korean plush to level and probably should have used some 320 GSMs. I think if you used the pearl style towels, that would have been
Well,
your sweet
what he's
spot.
meaning is he used a higher pile towel.
Oh,
and he
yeah,
should have
yeah.
used a low pile.
more bite, more leveling ability, not so much.
We
give.
find that many final finishing steps work better with lower pile, higher volume towels like our FTW, which is a twist loop.
Yes.
But it's a very compact twist loop. And so it's able to glide. You're able to apply the product, but it's also able to keep it from oversaturating or over smearing and smudging the surface.
Chris brings up an interesting one here. This is one I have some notes about, but Chris Driggett asking, it would be good to know how much pressure you can apply to a specific type of towel before it starts
Interesting
marring.
question,
See,
Chris.
that's my thing that I
surface-
said I want to do.
But
Yeah.
the trouble is the surface is different every time depending on the clear, the
Yep.
age, anything. If you're working on exclusively new cars, it might be a little easier to measure. But let's be honest, most of you guys aren't just working on new cars.
Right,
You're working on used stuff that somebody brought in. So it can change a lot just from one to the next. But if we can come up with some kind of standard, it would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, unless you guys got extra notes on that.
no, that's
No,
right.
And I'm just thinking about the guy behind the towel.
Yeah.
I mean, your technique versus my technique. How are you going to accommodate for that?
Well, yeah,
Well,
how do
and
you measure? Mine is 6 pounds, per
Right.
square inch versus your.
I
how
mean,
do
you got
know?
guns. I got BBs. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
No, but that goes right back. I used to have a minivan, and I was getting ready to turn it in and buy a new car, and I told one of my employees, I said, "Hey, look, just do a light clay on it, and just we're going to reset the car, and I'm going to send it out." And he goes, "Okay." He didn't think. he thought I was going to polish it again, so he pushed a little harder with the clay towel on
basically
two
wet sanded it.
panels. But he did two panels on my black van, and I walked over and I said, whoa, what are you doing? And he's like, what? You said to light clay. I'm like, sorry, I need you to quickly go over it with clay and don't scratch the paint because I'm just going to send it back out.
Right.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh. And he instantly changed his body language. You couldn't tell, but those first two panels he used, I had marring because he thought he was polishing. He's like, all right, light clay, I'll polish, I'll be done. Yeah. And I was like, no, just a quick light. And it was light, it was night and day. We pulled that car out in the sun. You could see the other panels that he had done were fine, but those first two had some marks. We pulled the polisher out, had to fix those and send it off. But it really does depend on the person and what their version of light is.
Yeah. Technique reigns supreme.
It's like sanding. It's like sanding. If you've ever done wet sanding, dry sanding, or any kind of body work or anything, there's a difference in the pressure that you're putting. Like, let's say, first cut 80 grit sandpaper over the top of body filler versus I'm going to put 3,000 grit before I polish. You're not putting a lot of pressure. So it's a reason backing plates and things were invented for the back of polishers is because of pressure. But I think that's it would be a snapshot in time. It would be this hood with this paint at this age and these three towels, and you could demonstrate pressure, but it's not, you're going to have a rule of thumb, and that's going to be the guy behind the guy or gal behind the towel is how much pressure you put on it. Test spot is the key, right? It's like you got a new paint you've never touched before. It's a Honda aluminum hood with black, and you better do a test spot and see what you can put in there. So
for sure.
There you go.
So that kind of wraps us up. But
thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. This has been great.
Being willing to answer the questions.
No, if you guys get more questions, I thought this was kind of fun. Maybe we could do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
You guys watching, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. But for now, where can people find you guys?
So they can go to roadfs.com, or you can go to YouTube or Facebook and just look at RoadFS. And, we got our YouTube channel with tons of stuff on business and anything detailing, and then
and we will be at Mobile Tech Expo next week with you guys.
Yep, excellent. All right. Well, I guess that kind of squares this up. So if you haven't already, click that like button here on the video.
Click.
Please do it already. It's not going to take you too much time. I'm just asking you kindly now so I don't have to beg for it later. But anyway, if you like that and you've subscribed to the channel, and please go subscribe to these guys' work as well. That would be much appreciated. RoadFS. That's really all I'm going to ask you today. Otherwise, share this video with somebody who has questions about microfiber. And in the future, hopefully, we can keep on building these tech talks. I think this was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
That's really
Appreciate
it, guys. All right, you all take care. We'll see you tomorrow on the podcast. Adios.
See ya.
See ya.